Brennan Doherty with Gibbons head football coach Steven Wright again this week with this week's edition of Gibbons Football Weekly Recap. Coach, your team got a big 45-14 win on family football night against Chapel Hill, and a game that started off with a touchdown by your team and then entered an hour and 28-minute rain delay. So, Coach, what's that like to have to keep the players motivated and just keep them on top of their game? Just an awkward long delay like that right after the game starts.
Yeah, obviously not something that was ideal, especially with the quick start that we got off to. We wanted to keep that momentum rolling, but I guess fortunately both teams had to deal with it, and we were able to find a quieter place in the school and kind of let them take their pads off, get relaxed for a little bit, and then give them updates as we got them. As the weather, began to clear, which unfortunately took an hour plus. But the guys did a great job of coming out focused again and, really restarting that game and obviously getting off to a good start on the, second time we hit that field and going into halftime at 28-0.
It looked like your quarterback, Shawn Stankavage, didn't lose any of that momentum set on the first drive. He had a great night passing for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. Completing most of his passes, 17 to 21, on a week-to-week basis. How important has he been to your team?
He's been very important, and he's making himself more important as the weeks go by, as he matures as a quarterback. I'll tell you, there's two things that we talk about as and we ask from our quarterback, and I talk about to them as their quarterback coach. The two things that we talk about most is, one, taking care of the football, so not turning it over, and then two, when we throw the ball, being efficient. And he completed 82% of his passes, which is an outstanding number. And if we can continue to do that, I think we put ourselves in a wonderful position to succeed.
Now your running back, Ben Grazen, his first game back after missing the previous game at Cedar Ridge with a back injury. 73 yards on the ground, maybe not his best game running ball, but over 100 yards receiving. Just how much of a dynamic threat is he on offense, being able to catch and run the ball like he has been this year?
Well, he's a huge threat and an important part of our offense. He caught the first touchdown pass of the game. He had a second touchdown pass called back, and certainly he had that lone rushing touchdown. We came in with a game plan knowing, basically what they were going to run, and, knowing that night we were going to throw the ball a little bit more than we were going to run it, just because of the nature of their defense and the personnel they had up front. They're two defensive tackles with the strong suit of their football team, and we knew that going in we wouldn't necessarily make a living running the football. But there were some holes in their secondary that we felt like we could exploit, and we did. And not only did we use 5 different receivers, but we also used Ben in that as well, in that mix. So we were real pleased and not at all disappointed with his rushing effort. That was really what we expected. But certainly more than happy with his 200-plus yards of total output.
Now your defense, they may not get as much attention as the offense, but another quality performance from them, just giving up just 1 touchdown. With Chapel Hill, so they're coming on special teams, but especially in that game against Chapel Hill, and really this season in general, how important has your defense's success been to your overall team success?
Well, it's huge. They've been the stabilizing force for us. They've been consistent from day one, and in so many ways have been dominant from day one. I think that first group is giving up an average of somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 points per game. Some of the other scores we've given up have been with backups in the game, and also there's been a couple teams that have scored some special teams touchdowns. But this first group has been impressive from the start, and we couldn't be happier with what they've given us so far this season.
Now you got your second conference game this week, homecoming against Southern Vance. They're a team that gave you some troubles on special teams, returning 2 kickoffs for touchdowns last year. How do you plan on to improve from that, and just how do you plan to game plan for them overall?
Well, we've worked hard on our kickoff team this week, especially in light of what happened last year. We're going to rely on the leg of Kane, hopefully to bury that ball deep. into the end zone so that they don't have an opportunity to return it. And we've also, just I think become more fundamentally sound with that group. And so we've been able to clean some things up from last week and are excited about what we've got for this upcoming week.
Speaking of Kane, he's a guy who's perfect on all his field goal attempts this year. How important, just how rare is it to find a kicker who's just been able to succeed the way he's been this season?
Well, I've certainly never had a kicker as consistent as Kane. He has been perfect from the field goal aspect. His PATs, the only misses have been a result of a bad snap. So, I think in all honesty, we could count him as perfect on the year of PAT and field goal. He's been solid in the kickoff game with burying that ball deep, and it's a luxury to be able to have a kicker at the high school level of the caliber of Kane.
Now your team's 6-0 on the season. Those first 2 wins came on the road at Clayton and at Cary. Now looking back on it, how big of those 2 wins been to start off the season? Not just because of their values as wins, but just as momentum builders for your team and way to boost the guys' confidence.
Well, certainly in hindsight, we could say that they've been huge. I think they were both teams, quality 4A teams that are historically strong, not only as a program but physically strong. And for us to be able to go to their place on both occasions there and walk away with wins, I think really helped us mentally as much as anything, and really set the tone for the season. And that's some of that momentum that we gained early in the season's carried itself, through this 6-game stretch so far.
Now you just faced Chapel Hill this past week. You're facing a quality Southern Vance team this week, and 2 games from now you'll be placing Orange. All those 3 teams have good chances of making the playoffs. Just overall, talk about what you thought. What are your thoughts on the strength of the Carolina 6 Conference as a whole this year, not just Gibbons, but the other teams as well?
Yeah, I think it's a very strong conference. In fact, I'd argue it's one of the stronger conferences in the area. With the thought that you're going to see, I think, potentially 4 teams in the postseason out of the 6 in our conference, and all 4 teams with a chance to make a push through the playoffs. We've certainly been pleased with the way we've handled things so far, but we've got a tough conference road in front of us. Southern Vance is extremely athletic. They are a team that can certainly jump up and surprise some folks, and we're certainly on high alert this week as they come into town, because as we learned from last year, they're a threat to break something at any time.
Now last week, even though your team usually a well-disciplined one, they had a few more penalties than they usually had. So this week in practice, how do you go about correcting that? And how do you teach this discipline and coach that to limit the penalties per game?
Well, we make it a point of emphasis each week. I think part of the issue we had last week was the strength of their defensive tackles, and we got caught a number of times holding, and it was just. I think it was just one of those situations where physically maybe they had an edge on us, and we ended up at times having to hold to prevent from the play blowing up, and and it got called, and rightly so.
Alrighty, thanks for your time this week, Coach, and good luck Friday night against Southern Vance.
Thank you, Brennan. Appreciate it.